Click. Contact. Okay, folks, we're going to do a start on camera, live and in person. Now, full disclosure, this is not a first start because I started it Saturday morning. Yesterday, I guess it would be, because today's Sunday. And the reason why I didn't film it is because I just didn't have time. I was really pressed for time. I was taking a ride on the beast and had to meet up with some guys. So I did what I could in the morning and just fired up real quick. Yeah, she smokes like a son of a bitch, but like I said, I think earlier in the other video that we're anticipating that because, you know, the fogging oil, and it's been sitting for a while. So I got everything back together. This air box is just a pain to get back in. It is such a tough job. I re-siliconed around where that snot was coming off. Best I can do. I cleaned up, that has a K&N filter. I cleaned that up and got that in. Just lightly, you know, touched it up with some oil. Everything's tight. Double checked oil. The oil looks pretty good actually. One of the stupid aftermarket air horns broke off. Looks like this plastic is just giving up the ghost. So we'll see if we can fix that with something. So anyway, let's fire her up again, and I think I'll take you off the lapel mic eventually because it doesn't really get the sound too well of the engine running, but in order to hear me right now, I figured we'd do it this way, and then we'll switch over. But let's get her going first. You guys take the key. I'm looking for the key. The handlebars are like 3 miles wide. Power, run, enricher, fuel. I just want to check one thing and we'll fire back up again. Like I said, a lot of smoke, but it doesn't smell like burning oil. It smells again like the fogging oil, but it's one of these things you got to do when it's been sitting for a while. Sounds like she's hunting on a cylinder a little bit. I don't think that's anything to do with carburetors as far as settings or anything like that. I think it's the synchronization. So before it gets too hot, I'm gonna let it air out in here. I'm gonna go ahead and review the synchronization procedure. I think I mentioned that in the last video. Is there a special procedure for this because it's a 6-cylinder and we have 4-bank synchronizer. So let me go review that. Pull the synchronizer out. We'll get her hooked up. Start the first round and then we'll go ahead and fire her back up again. First round is 1, 3, 4, and 5. So since I'm used to going 1, 2, 3, 4, I just labeled them so I wouldn't make a mistake. Number 3 is your base carb. So we're going to set everything to number 3 basically. So we're going to do 1, 3, 4, 5. Actually, we're going to do 1, 4, 5 because 3 is your base. So that's unadjustable. Bull. And so how this works is when you back the screw out or counterclockwise, it'll close the butterfly. Closing the butterfly increases vacuum. and vice versa. So it's kind of counterintuitive. You think to turn the vacuum up, you not back it out, you turn it in, but you actually lower the vacuum doing that because you're opening the butterfly a little bit more. We're ready to go. Let's go ahead and get you in the stand, turn the fuel back on, fire it up. I need to let it warm up a little bit more. Well, actually it's pretty good right now. And then we'll see where we're at. Have a screwdriver ready. Let's do it. Yeah, I'd say 5 is a little bit off. But yeah, we got to adjust 5 big time. 5 is way too closed. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set a fan up, make sure we got some air running over it, and then I'll show you a little bit more detail. You know what I ended up doing? I ended up labeling my synchronizer incorrectly, and I hooked them up wrong, and I'm like, why is this not working? I need to fix that too. I just wasn't watching, I guess. This one is actually going to 5, so it's 5.4, not 4.5. So I don't want to take a chance of any overheating, so let me go ahead and get that done, and we'll fire her up again. I know what it is. There's a problem in the solenoid. I don't know if the cooling fan works or anything, so we'll just run some air over it. It doesn't have a temp light, it just has an overheat light. Alright, so you can see number 3. Can you see that? We're low on number 3. I'm sorry, number 3 is high, so we're low on the other ones. So let's do 1, which is over here. So now we want to do 5. Go back to 1. 5. All right, let's do 4. Still smoking. Almost like it's running rich. Not jetted or anything. Those are the correct jets, and I certainly didn't ream them out. But that's pretty close. I don't want to dial it in until we get a more accurate RPM on it. The tachometer is misbehaving anyway. That's close enough now. Let's do the next step, and I'll pull out that the digital RPM meter on this. Set it up for a 6-cylinder. See if we can get it more accurate. I also went ahead and changed the oil and filter. I checked the oil, and if it was excessively high, I wouldn't run it at all like that. Like, for example, if it had gotten infused with fuel, and it looked pretty good, but it is old, like 10 years old at least. So I went ahead and changed it. That could certainly be why it's smoking a little bit, because the oil's thinned out, and it's not a big deal. I mean, it's lubricating stuff, but you don't want to run it that way forever. I got it up to operating temperature. I mean, it's barely there right now, actually. This is a big motor to absorb a lot of heat generated, especially with a fan on it. So we're going to fire her up again and take a look. Now, I also got my handy dandy digital readout, and it's actually 900 RPM, not 1,000. So I'm going to dial it into that, and then we'll continue. We are at 1.3. definitely still smoking, but it doesn't smell like oil. It smells like it's running rich. I don't know. It could be just because there's a bunch of junk in there. I don't know. I don't want to rev it up too much with the balancer on there. It can actually damage it when it recoils aggressively. So we'll switch over to the next victims. Quit for the day. We'll take this back up tomorrow or whenever we can. Figure it out. Not really sure why. You know, the floats are non-adjustable, and I checked all the float levels, you know, when I put them back together, make sure the floats were okay. There's no compromised floats. Like I said, I checked all the jets. They're all good. The only thing I could do is adjust the pilots, try to tune them in. It could be that, but you know, even when you get on it, she's definitely running rich, and I'm not really sure why. I tried a little brake clean, just in case it was running lean around the carb boots and around the seal. I put new O-rings in here, you know, where it joins the head, the intake side. So I don't know. She's definitely running rich. You know, it runs good. I mean, you can hear it. It runs good, but it's popping on the left bank here at idle, especially after I dialed in this side a little bit further, which leads me to believe that we have a fuel issue on this side, and I'm not really sure what it is. So anyway, we'll come back to it. All right, we're at next day, and this is what I found. I had a problem with the little hoses, the tubes, and the vacuum synchronizer. Problem is where these are little extensions that go on here, you see? These are, I think, probably 4.5 millimeter, and what was happening was the ends are little extensions. In the middle here is actually a little, I guess you call it a baffle. It's a little tiny tube with a very small hole in it, or I should say a tube with a very tiny hole in it. And that, you know, kind of dampens the intake pulse. So this thing doesn't go all over the place. I mean, it still does a little bit, as you saw, but without this very small orifice for that vacuum pulse to come through, this would be unreadable. So it's kind of a damper, you know, or something like that. Maybe that's the wrong term, but at any rate, the thing is, from this point on was the same size as this, and apparently these little nipples, the vacuum nipples were a little smaller on this one, and with the, you know, gasket at the ends of them, it just swelled them out. So net sum, I didn't have a good vacuum connection on the tips. Just a tip, and just for a minute. What I ended up doing was I have some 3.5 millimeter vacuum line, brand new actually, I just got it in, and swapped that all over. I also renumbered this because it was a little confusing for me, and that's easy to do. So 135, 135. I did it in the order, you know, right to left basically, with 4 on the other side. So we have to resync the entire deal. It's not a big deal, but I think I screwed that up. So we'll get that done. I'm gonna do that off camera because you already kind of saw it. And what I'll do though is once I get evolution done, as far as the operations go, you know, one side, I guess could be, you could say one side to the other. I'll show you the results only of each of those. And then I think we can button up the synchronization. Now the other cool thing is, I didn't know this. I have a Motion Pro, the really nice Motion Pro carb adjusting tool, and it has this neat little bevel gear set up where you can get it into very tight places. Well, I was unaware that it actually had the Honda circle with the flat tool in it. Kind of wish I had known that before. I wouldn't have made 2 of them. Silly me. This just takes a regular 1/4 inch. So I could have put this in any driver actually and do that. I just didn't realize it. So I took a look and I went, huh, there is one in there. Doi! So there we go. So we can do the pilots too, if we need to, as far as fine tuning the slow jets after we get the sync done. We definitely want to get the sync done. Now really, in all normal other operations, I would want to do a valve clearance check before I did a sync. I don't even know when the first valve clearance maintenance schedule would be, the benchmark would be rather, in the maintenance schedule. So I'm not going to worry about it. Plus, that's not part of this job. This is just to get it back running and safe to ride, in saleable conditions. So we're going to obviously not be doing that. So anyway, I'm going to get that done, show you the results, and then we'll take it from there. See what we got. All right, the fan just kicked in. That's good. Verify that. Yeah, 180 something, 190. Yep, that's right. It's a little cold out here, but it's still a little smoky. I hope that clears up. It doesn't smell like oil smoke. It smells like it's running a little rich, but it's clearing up as I run it. And I did the pilot adjustments for the service manual. I got a little popping on that left bank, but it's better. It would help if I turn the gas on. We're definitely up the temp. These 3 cylinders over here, especially what was a number 4 that had almost looked like some corrosion in there. There's no guarantees on that. This thing may absolutely have some problems with oil consumption because of that, but it's the best I can do as it sits. Runs good. I think I cleared out most of that pop, and I got a feeling it was number 6, so I opened that pilot up a little bit more than the others. It seems to have done better. All right. I think, unless something else pops up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get all that brake work done off camera. If something pops up in the brake work, I'll fire the camera back up and stick it perhaps in this video, I guess, because this is going to be the last one anyway. Just a quick blurb to show you a couple things, like if it's really gunky or how to get the pistons out or something. Other than that, we'll take it back when we get it back on the road, take it for a ride and see how it finally does. I'm going to also do off camera is finish that tank up too and get the fuel cock installed and stuff, but you don't need to see that. It's not terribly interesting. So like I said, as far as this work goes on the lift without the tank on and everything, I think we're up to the brakes now, so we'll get that done. Do have some of interest here, I think, to show on the brakes. I wanted to kind of explain a little bit better why these things lock up after sitting for so long. So let me get a light and I'll give you a little bit of a briefing on it. Now, if you look inside the groove of the one that I took out, you see all that shmoo, and what it is it's corrosion. And what happens with that is the corrosion, I called it rust jacking, it's kind of the same thing. The corrosion gets in between that groove and the rubber, packing, the seals, whatever you want to call it. And so what ends up happening is it actually puts circumferential pressure around the pistons, and these fit pretty tight, normally. So when you get that kind of situation, it just squeezes, those pistons so bad. And in concert with that, you get some corrosion in the bore itself. There's obviously not a ton of clearance between the pistons and the bores, especially around where that corrosion sits, where those seals are, that packing is. And those two factors just lock these things up. I got really lucky on these, as I mentioned before, because the pistons are in excellent shape. And I've already done one side, and this will come off mostly. It's a little bit of pitting, but it'll come off. And I did lightly chuck these up in the lathe, and just put some 1000 grit spinning pretty, as fast as I could get my old Atlas to go, which ain't fast, and then polished them up real good, and they'll be fine. Anything around the end here, which is the outside edge, is not going to be a problem. Even with brand new pads, where this thing will be sitting further back in at a nominal place, where the pads are hitting the rotor, it's really not going to be all the way in. It's going to be about there anyway, so you're not going to have a problem with it. And again, these things really sit very tightly in the packing when it's inside that groove. I mean, they really are pretty snug. So like I said, I lucked out on that. Now getting these out, I know there's probably going to be a question on that. There's a number of ways to do it. The way that I do not recommend is the exact way that I do it, which is put compressed air on the damn thing and pop them out. The best way to do it is to pump them out with the actual brake system. But once you break one of the calipers off, you got to have a way to seal off the line that goes to that caliper. Otherwise, you can't put the pressure to the other one. I don't really have that set up. Some guys have built an actual bench setup that has a clutch master cylinder, like from the front brake of a whatever bike, and then they just keep it primed up. And since all these Japanese bikes basically take the same banjo connection, you just hook it up and bleed it real quick and then pump the things out. It's a much safer and much more controlled way. So what I do is I have these plastic wedges. I think I got them from the Harbor Freight years ago. And I put these wedges in, one way, of course this is clamped in a vise, and one the other way. And then I can use compressed air, and of course I wear eye protection and the whole 9 yards, and essentially work these things out one at a time and get them out so they're 2/3 of the way out, 90% out, whatever. And then usually you can wiggle them out like this. Now this one in particular was so tight that it didn't do that. It just wouldn't come out. The other one did, but not this one, so it's stuck about right here. I can't get it on any further. Actually, probably about there. So in that case, what you do is take a heat gun. I wouldn't use regular torch heat, because you'll take whatever coating is off here instantly. So take a heat gun and warm this up really good, and then you can tap this with a dead blow, just a small dead blow. Once it gets out pretty far, you can kind of rock it back and forth. I also have a pair of special modified vice grips from a place called, and this is not made up. His site or his company is called expensivelightweightshit.com. No kidding, it's really what it is. I think his name is Chris, and he makes these, sells them. Now they don't really work on their design. I think for certain sport bike calipers that you can actually reach in while they're in the calipers pretty far, and you grab it. Of course, this spreads outwards like that. But once you push these out, and a lot of others, and they get out, that 80-90%, you can reach in, grab them with this tool, and then work them out nice and easy, and then you get them out. So that's what I ended up doing on this one, and then you see what I have to deal with now. I clean it with some brake clean, and I'm throwing it into the ultrasonic cleaner. It takes a couple of shots, and then I go back in and carefully scrape out the grooves very lightly with a pick tool. Anyway, that's just a couple of points on the brakes that I wanted to share in this particular video. When you get a kit from Brake Crafters, this is what you get. Everything to do the particular caliper or master cylinder. The only thing I didn't do, of course, is I did not buy the pistons. They do have kits that include those, but because I didn't need them. And so this is what the kit looks like. Now when you go to put these seals in, or the packing, you put a small amount of this grease, special grease that he includes, and I'm talking just a little bit around the seal, and then pop it in. That keeps the seal from rolling and sticking. It'll actually want to assume its appropriate position and slip into the slots, into the grooves. All right, so you just get your seals in, and when you're putting your pistons in, you just take a very, very thin amount of this stuff just to coat it. It just helps it, because otherwise it's sticking. Now if you have a bike where it says to use only a certain thing, like brake fluid, do that, but this works really well. And then what I do is I take it and I start by rotating it a little bit and get past that outer seal, dust seal. Then you get past the inside packing. And there we go, it slips right in. If it's going in like, stop, back it out, and start over, because it shouldn't be doing that. It should be smooth, smooth, smooth. And we rotate it around. This is a tight fit, as I said before. Real tight fit. And you evenly apply some pressure. Rotate it around. Boom, right in. So now this caliper is not loaded, but partially loaded. And then we're ready to go on to the next part. All right, folks, this is where we're at. I finally got this tank done. Let me tell you something. This was absolutely the worst fuel tank I've ever had to service as far as cleaning the inside of. You know, I think in the first video I mentioned when I first looked at it, I go, holy cow, this one's going to be the worst. And then I rinsed it out with some solvent, you know, actually degreaser, and it didn't look so bad. And I think I commented and said, that's not too bad. Well, it was. And I had such a hard time getting it clean. See if I can render the photos off of that borescope. I'll stick them in here. If not, you just take my word for it. So what I ended up doing was having to let it sit it's a mild mix of phosphoric acid overnight. And unfortunately that etches a little bit of the inside of the tank, but it etches it dark, and those are the spots that it would attack that's actually corroded. So it converts that, and it shouldn't rust there as readily unless the tank is empty. I'm sorry, I just can't get this guy to stop barking this morning. He's just being naughty. All right, where was I? I only have a quart of gas in it right now, and I have it on reserve. Now, two things I found. Well, one I did, and the other one I found. I went ahead and cleaned and re-oiled that K&N filter, and that was pretty dumb not for me to do that in the first place, or for me not to do that, rather. I glanced at it, it looked good. Now, there was a foam pre-filter on it. It was totally disintegrated, but I'm not going to worry about that. And so I just tossed that out and blew off the filter. Well, the filter was probably dirtier than I thought it looked like. And I even sprayed a little bit of K&N oil on it, I'll be fine. So I think that's why it was running rich, is because it was probably a little bit air-starved. And I remembered that last night because I was thinking, about the time I was going to sleep, and I was dreaming about, the sheep jumping over the moon or whatever the hell it is. And I'm thinking, hey, wait a minute, my Bandit 1200, I did the same thing. I made a mistake and re-oiled those filters. The next thing you know, the damn thing's fouling plugs, because that had individual pods. So anyway, I cleaned that up, put it back in. I actually washed that last night, let it dry overnight, shot it with a little bit of oil this morning. And then the other thing was, on the other side for the coil mount where it bolts into the frame, I had to get that out of the way again for something. I forgot to tighten the bolts, and one of those bolts is a ground. I think it's the ground for the coil, so I think that's probably where our popping was coming from. So I'll probably have to redo the pilot jet adjustments, which, the final thing to go on is this metal trim here. I don't know, I forgot how it goes on, but it goes on. Let's see, so it must go like this, yeah. So that'll be the last thing I put on, because I think I'm going to adjust those one more time. So, all right, so let's show you how she runs. Contact. I did start it just a couple minutes ago and only let it run for about 3 minutes. Ran? Jesus. Only let it run for about 3 minutes. Fix this. This was, there was a terminal busted. I fixed that, and one of these was cracked and it broke. There you go. So, just to reiterate, I'm going to probably tweak those pilots a little bit, and this is going to be almost the last video of it. I think I'll try to take a video of it as I ride it, like out the driveway or something creative. I don't have a drone like some of these rich YouTubers do, nor do I really want one. So that'll be the last of it, and it'll finish this video out. And then we'll do a quick outro and say bye-bye. Oh, there you are. Didn't see you. Okay, so anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. This was part 5? Probably my longest video series, 5 parts. I know it's long, but there's a lot of material to cover in this. It's a busy job. 6 carbs, the tank work, all that stuff. But I wanted to cover as much as possible because, you know, show people that you can do it too. It's not really that difficult. So I wanted to say, again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and you'll get notified, especially if you ding the bell when I post some new stuff. Till next time, always remember, don't just repair, restore. Catch you on the next video.